Revealed, the heartwarming secret of my house purchase and the unexpected plot for family control. The air in Maplewood buzzed with the electric excitement of spring, and for Jessica, it felt like a renaissance. After years of scrimping and saving, the paint-splattered sanctuary she finally could call home radiated dreams of whispered bedtime stories, epic pillow fights, and cozy family dinners. The charming cottage, the kind you'd find in storybooks, stood proudly at the end of the tree-lined street. Yet, it felt more than just a house. It was a balm for a heart that had bled long enough. Jessica looked down at her hands, still trembling from the rush of adrenaline. The walls felt alive with laughter, the smell of warm chocolate chip cookies, and the clatter of birthday balloons. She could almost hear her daughter Lily's giggles and son Max's dramatic reenactments spilling through the windows. This was not just a dream, this was a new beginning, a chance to break the cycle of struggle that had defined so much of her life as a single mother. But just when the horizon felt clean and bright, her estranged father, George, resurfaced, the ghost of family dinners long gone. After years of absence, he knocked on her front door like a clap of thunder, his grizzled face etched with regret. Instinctively, Jessica's heart tightened, aflame with old wounds she thought had healed. Could he really wade back into her life like this? How could a man who walked out on them ever understand the burden he had left behind? As the community rallied around her neighbors lending kind hands and warm hugs, Jessica grappled with a familiar ache. Their support couldn't mend what was broken. Each encounter caused her heart to flutter with longing for a family bond she had been denied for far too long. Then came the storm. Dark clouds rolled in, heavy with the weight of memories too painful to acknowledge. The winds howled like the cries of a child left unheard, ripping through the modest charms of her cottage. Jessica watched helplessly as shingles were torn away, branches crashed down, and something within her felt shattered too. The foundation she labored so hard to build felt wrecked, just like her father's promises. Drowning in despair, she wandered to the attic after the rain had passed, and there, amidst forgotten treasures, a tattered letter caught her eye. As she unfolded its time-worn edges, the words danced before her, an echo of her mother's love, her wisdom spilling onto the page like soothing balm. It whispered of forgiveness, of understanding the important bonds of family. Could this be the bridge she needed to reconcile with the man who once vanished? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jessica sat there in the dust and the shadows, clutching that letter close as hope ignited within her. What was once the trembling specter of loss began to morph into an opportunity for healing. Could she really open her heart to the man who abandoned her? Did love offer a way back after everything? As the thunder of her past rolled in again, she felt the weight of choices pressing down as heavy as the storm clouds outside. Could the love her mother had wrapped so tightly in that letter guide her toward reconnection, or would it flounder in the wreckage of unresolved anger? Every heartbeat echoed the uncertainty. Would she find the courage to trust again? As Jessica faced this turbulent crossroads, she wondered, could a broken family truly be rebuilt from the ruins? The next morning, sunlight streamed through the attic window, illuminating dust particles dancing in the golden rays. It felt like a signal, a nudge from fate. Jessica held the letter tightly, its edges worn but its message clear. She felt as if her mother's love was wrapping itself around her, urging her to make a choice. Today was a new day, one that could either bury her in the past or propel her towards connection. With a newfound determination, Jessica descended the stairs, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. She planned to confront her father. If reconciliation were possible, wouldn't it begin with a conversation? Yet, part of her quivered with anxiety at the thought of exposing herself again, especially to the man who had once shattered her world. Lily and Max were already outside, painting rainbows on the sidewalk. Their laughter filled the air, a reminder of the joy Jessica longed to protect. She called them inside, meeting them close before she faced the storm brewing in her own heart. Mommy, look at my colors. Lily said, her face luminous with the joy of creation. They're beautiful, honey. Jessica responded, forcing a smile even as her gut twisted. Are you okay, Mom? Max asked, his perceptive gaze troubling her more than she expected. I'm okay, sweetie, she assured him, even as doubts gnawed at her. She needed to be strong not just for them, but for the family she might still salvage with George. After settling the kids with a movie, Jessica stood at her front door, the very threshold where the weight of past hurts loomed. She paced back and forth, the wooden floor creaking under her nervous movements. If she opened that door, would it bring a fresh start or rekindle old resentments? Taking a deep breath, she finally stepped outside. The crisp air nipped at her skin as she walked down the pathway. Each step felt like a leap into the unknown. The trees, now in full bloom, brushed gently against her as if offering encouragement. When she reached George's house, it had been neglected for years. The sight of the peeling paint and overgrown garden mirrored her own emotional landscape. Gritting her teeth, she knocked. It felt like eternity before the door swung open. George stood there, his hands shoved deep in the pockets of his worn jeans, a shadow of the father she remembered. Jess? His voice cracked, surprise etched across his weathered face. Dad, she paused, feeling the words trying to escape her lips like trapped butterflies. I need to talk about Mom and everything. Jessica watched the shift in his expression. It was as if she had flipped a switch, regret, guilt, and something softer flickered in his eyes. Can we talk inside? She hesitated, those old scars still fresh, but something deeper, her desire for closure, forced her to nod and step past him into the dimly lit hallway. The air was thick with memories, suffocating and charged. They sat at the kitchen table, silence wrapping around them like a shroud. She could feel the weight of their shared history pressing down, suffocating yet poignant. Jessica, he started, and she immediately surged with defiance. Why did you leave us? The words tumbled out, fueled by years of pent-up hurt. His face crumpled. I thought I was protecting you. I was wrong. As they exchanged memories, fears, and apologies, the air began to shift. Moments of laughter surfaced like bubbles in a fermenting pot, lightening the darkness between them. But just as the barriers seemed ready to come down, Jessica felt an unwelcome shadow creep in. George's past was tangled with secrets that could still tear them apart. Wait, Jessica's heart raced as a thought crystallized. What are you hiding, Dad? The question hung heavily in the air, thick with implications as she searched his eyes for the truth. Would this revelation break them again, or was it the key to building something new? She was ready to dive deeper, but was he? George looked away, long enough that Jessica could feel her heart drop. The tension in the room grew thicker as she watched his shoulders slump, like he was preparing to bear the weight of a heavy confession. Jessica's breath quickened. They had just begun to peel back the layers of their fractured relationship, and now the possibility of another blow threatened to send them tumbling back. Jess's voice was strained, hanging in the silence between them. There are things I've kept from you. Not because I wanted to hurt you, but because I was terrified of losing you both all over again. The word struck her, and she felt anger and pity surge together, forming a cocktail of emotions that churned her stomach. What could be worse than leaving us? You broke our family. Tears glistened in his eyes as he let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for years. You're right. I messed up so many times. I thought if I protected you from the truth, it would shield you from the pain. God, I was naive. You deserve to know. Suddenly, a loud crash broke the tension, echoing from the living room where the kids were. Jessica's heart raced, but she didn't want to divert the conversation just yet. Stay here, she urged, rising from the table. I'll go check on them. Panic gripped her as she moved toward the living room. She found Max and Lily huddled together, staring at the overturned coffee table and a shattered picture frame, the one of their family taken at the beach years ago, laughter frozen in time. As Jessica bent to pick up the pieces, she spotted George stuck in the doorway, his face pale and frightened. Obsessing over the kid's accident, she caught his eye. See? This is what I mean. Everything falls apart, Dad. Why won't you just tell me the truth? George swallowed hard, stepping into the room with an air of hesitation. That picture, it represents more than you realize. There's something I didn't tell you about your mother. It ties to why I left. Jessica froze, her heart pounding harder. Her mother had always been this untouchable figure, perfect and serene, a mother made of sunlight and surety. What do you mean? Your mother, she was just as lost as I was. The choice I made to walk away, it wasn't just about the arguments or my career, it was about trying to protect you both from a history I didn't want to repeat. His release of the painful truth sent tears stinging her eyes. So you took off instead? Left us to figure it out on our own? Don't you see, Jess? I thought it was better to live with the shame of my actions than to bring you down into the cycle of addiction and denial that had plagued our families. Substance abuse, it's passed down like a curse, and I didn't want that for you. How could you? She said, voice trembling, the depth of his revelation pushing her to the brink. Just then, Lily's quiet voice cut through the chaos. Mommy, are we losing our family again? Jessica turned, swallowed by a wave of guilt. She knelt to meet her daughter's gaze, hugging her tightly. No, sweetheart. We're trying to find it. We're trying to make it whole. But in her heart, doubt crept in. Could a shattered past ever truly heal? And were these secrets the key to finally stitching their family back together, or was it an unraveling thread, a path that would lead them further down the dark and twisted road of their history? As she turned back to face her father, the heavy question rested between them once again. Would the truth, his truth, draw them closer or drive them apart forever? Jessica stood there, squeezing Lily tightly, her mind racing. She knew instinctively that the road ahead was fraught with unknowns. Her father's words hung in the air like a thick fog, layered, complicated, nearly choking her. He had painted a picture of her mother that didn't align with the warm memories she had cherished. Let us sit down, George suggested, his voice somehow steadier. Here? After all this? Jessica exclaimed, her emotions a mix of disbelief and desperation. Do you really think we can just sit down and make sense of this? We have to try, he insisted, sitting down on the sofa, gesturing for her to join him. Reluctantly, she led Lily to the armchair across from him. Max, still silent, sat on the floor at Lily's feet, his innocence blanketing them like a comforting veil. Taking a deep breath, George rubbed his hands together, his eyes casting downward as if searching for answers in the wooden floorboards. I never wanted you two to bear the weight of our mistakes. Not your mother's or mine. More secrets? Jessica felt a new wave of anger bubbling up. But you did. And now we're left with this mess. What else is there? I was trying to spare you from the truth that your mother, she struggled with her own demons. When she drank, it wasn't just a drink. It was her way of escaping a reality she couldn't face. Jessica could feel the pieces of her past shattering around her like the glass frame. How could she reconcile the woman who always encouraged her to be strong with someone who could drown beneath the weight of her own fears? You mean she was just like you? I mean, we both feared turning into something we were terrified of, George replied, his voice thickening. I lost so much time because I was running away, Jess. I hated myself for feeling inadequate. I thought if I left, I could keep you safe from that same curse. And yet you let us believe the worst of you. That you abandoned us by choice, she said, her voice trembling. You lied to protect us? Did it ever occur to you that being honest would have helped us heal? The silence stretched. Max fiddled with a toy, and Lily watched their grandfather carefully, her big eyes searching for understanding she couldn't quite grasp. What would you have done? George finally replied, his voice low. Would you have wanted me to drag you into that pain? To watch your world crumble again? You were so young, you should have trusted us enough to tell us. We had to find out through whispers and glimpses, through flickers of confusion as we grew up, Jessica snapped, her heart racing but feeling the need to stand her ground. I didn't know how. I still don't, he replied, tears pooling in the corner of his eyes. All I know is the option I chose was wrong. But I want to stop running. Jessica studied her father's tear-streaked face, grappling with the desire to push him away while simultaneously wanting to pull him closer. There was a weighty bond forming, stitched together with shared pain and complicated love. "I don't know if I can forgive you, or if I want to," she said honestly. "But can we at least try to understand?" His expression shifted, a glimmer of hope sparking beneath the surface. "I'd like that more than anything." As she looked over at Lily and Max, she realized they were at a precipice. Not just her and George but the entirety of their family. They stood at the gateway to their own truths, yet to be uncovered. "What if we could create a space where we can talk, really talk?" Jessica asked, the question hanging heavy with responsibility. "Can we start by sharing our fears instead of hiding them?" Before George could formulate an answer, the front door swung open with a sudden gust, and in strode an unexpected pair, Jessica's childhood friend Kara and her new boyfriend. Their arrival felt like a jolt, breaking the fragile moment and thrusting a bold array of new emotions into the room. "Hey, we thought we'd drop by," Kara said, her bright smile illuminating the dark corners of their gathering. A sharp inhale passed through Jessica's lips. "What now?" she whispered under her breath, as the family's moment of revelation hung delicately in the air, now interrupted and spiraling into chaos once again. What secrets did Kara's presence summon? And could this intrusion unveil yet another layer of Jessica's tangled past? Jessica felt a wave of unease wash over her as Kara's cheerful voice echoed in the room. She couldn't shake the feeling that this visit wasn't a simple drop-in. The last time they'd been together, it had been a light-hearted afternoon filled with laughter, but now it felt fraught with tension. Kara's eyes danced over the gathering, landing briefly on George before settling on Jessica. "Wow, what's going on? You guys look serious," she said, her tone still upbeat, but Jessica could sense the undercurrent of confusion. "Just family stuff," Jessica replied, forcing out a half-smile. She wanted to explain, to peel back the layers of hurt that had been exposed, but not now, not with Kara here. Kara sidled closer, her boyfriend lingering by the door, looking slightly lost. "I didn't know you'd be having a family meeting. Sorry if we barged in." "It's fine, really," Jessica said, glancing at George, who seemed to be lost somewhere between relief and agitation. The worried look on his face struck her. He was just as unsure about this interruption as she was. As Kara and her boyfriend made their way in, the air thickened, and the moment Jessica wanted to seize slipped further away. She felt practical yet magical ideas transform into awkward silences. "This is unexpected," she thought, her mind racing. "Kara, this is my dad, George," Jessica finally said, gesturing. And this is Kara's expression brightened, yet there was something else beneath that smile. "I remember you. You're the one who used to be a mystery. It's so nice to meet you, really." George nodded, still tentative. "Nice to meet you," he said, his voice hoarse as if struggling against unspoken words. They all settled in, but the tension lingered like a stubborn cloud. Jessica shifted in her chair. "We were just talking about things, family stuff," she repeated, this time inviting a small chatter, hoping to lighten the mood. "Family stuff?" Kara echoed, leaning in with genuine curiosity. "Well, you know how it is with families. There's always something, right?" At that moment, George cleared his throat, an involuntary response. "Jessica's right, we were just discussing the past," he said, working to regain control of the conversation. "I owe my daughters a better understanding of our history." Jessica's stomach twisted. Would the truth slip out that their family wasn't a storybook but a world filled with shadows and light? Kara tilted her head, her playful expression shifting to something softer. "I think the past shapes us. You can start fresh, but it doesn't mean you forget," she offered, her voice sincere. Unprepared for such a moment of insight, Jessica's heart ached. Kara's inherent wisdom was straightforward and charming, but it intensified the complexity of their own family truth. She glanced at Lily, who was wrapped up in her innocent world, oblivious to the gravity surrounding them. Before the emotional knot could unravel, Kara continued. "We've all got our stories," she said lightly, but Jessica could see the yearning for connection in her eyes. Like, I'm navigating through a few things myself. What do you mean? Jessica asked, curious, needing a distraction from her own mounting anxiety. Oh, just some drama with my parents. She waved it off like it was nothing. And I'm trying to figure out how to love them and yet keep my distance. You know? That hit a little too close to home for Jessica, and she felt a flicker of empathy. She saw Kara was wrestling with her own truths, underlying struggles veiled by her usual cheerfulness. Why is it so hard to find that balance? Jessica mused aloud, prompting a lull that filled the room with a contemplative calm. Maybe it's because we care, Kara said softly. The truth was both simple and complex, hanging in the air like a thread ready to snap. George shifted again, seemingly wrestling with his own thoughts, and as he opened his mouth to speak, the door rattled again. This time, it was Jessica's brother, Ryan, stepping into the scene, his expression caught somewhere between confusion and surprise. Did I miss something? He asked, glancing from face to face. Unaware of the emotional labyrinth they were navigating. Jessica felt a surge of dread rise up again. How many more layers were hiding beneath the surface, waiting for this gathering to ignite a truth they'd all been too afraid to confront? As Ryan took a seat, a haunted silence spread through the room. Jessica was left contemplating how the cracks in their family's facade were becoming hard to ignore. What would happen if they all began to unravel their stories? Was this moment the spark that would finally ignite the full truth they all needed to face? The room was thick with a silence that felt almost suffocating. Jessica's heart raced as she glanced from Ryan's puzzled face to George's resolve warring with uncertainty. Questions loomed in the air, like dark clouds threatening to burst, but no one dared to speak the words that would break the silence. So, what's up? Ryan tried again, his youthful optimism clashing with the heaviness of the atmosphere. He looked around as if expecting someone might burst into laughter, revealing it had all been a bad joke. Jessica wanted to leap to her brother's defense. It's complicated, she finally said, her voice shaky. Well, we can always talk about something else, Kara suggested, her tone quick to return to lightness, although Jessica detected her attempt to mask uncertainty. Jessica's chest tightened at the thought of deflecting into trivialities while the truth begged to surface. No, we can't. We can't keep sidestepping this. Kara nodded, her features softening in understanding. You know I'm here for you, she offered, but it felt like mere words floating on the chaos around them. At that moment, George looked directly at Jessica, his usually firm demeanor cracking. Jessica, maybe it's time. His voice faltered, and he seemed to lose his brave facade, revealing a vulnerability that resonated deeply with her. Jessica felt her emotions roiling, a storm within her. Time for what, Dad? To face the truth, he said quietly, almost pleading. I want to tell you about the decisions that shaped our family. The secrets we buried because we thought they would keep us safe. Jessica's breath caught, the weight of that statement crashing into her. What secrets? They had always assumed a facade of normalcy, but that didn't protect them from the wounds that ran deep. She took a moment, fear mixing with curiosity, anticipation trembling in her chest. Kara leaned forward, captivated. I think you should share. It's always better to get everything out in the open. George hesitated, eyes glancing around at his daughters before settling back on Jessica. When I bought the house, it was to protect all of you, but in doing so, I made choices that hurt us. Ryan leaned in, his brow furrowing, his youthful oblivion replaced by concern. What do you mean? What happened? Jessica's heart raced faster. She understood that it was now or never. Did you keep something from us? Something important? George inhaled deeply, tension pooling in the air. The kind of tension that could either mend what was broken or tear them apart entirely. Yes, things I thought I could shield you from, but it turns out, keeping secrets changes everything. Ryan looked confused, trying to piece together the uncertainties. The silence that followed felt like an endless void, a mixture of dread and hope crackling in the atmosphere. Jessica's mind spun, images of their family forced together under one roof, but always drifting apart. What is it? she urged, desperate now. What could be worse than asking questions? Tell us. Please. The room pulsed with emotions: anxiety, fear, a hint of rebellion against the status quo. Just then, Lily chose to chime in, her sweet voice cutting through the thick tension, oblivious to the complexity surrounding her. Are we having pizza tonight? I'm hungry. That innocent interruption lightened the mood momentarily, but Jessica felt the heaviness return, urging for an answer. Would they ignore the question again, or would they break through the barriers, the cracks in their family's perfect image? George looked bewildered. The look between him and Jessica was electric, crackling with urgency. They needed to choose how this story would unfold now. Suddenly, the door creaked open a touch more, and Jessica gasped, realizing someone else was entering. Would this be someone who could tip their delicate balance, or an unexpected player in their family drama? What just happened? The voice inquired, resonating with a familiarity that made Jessica's heart race. Could this unexpected arrival hold the key to everything they'd been avoiding? The figure stepped into the dim room like a specter from a past long buried. It was Aunt Ellen, her weathered face etched with lines of worry and warmth. I heard voices, she said, glancing around as if she could belong to this fractured moment. The shift in the atmosphere was palpable. Jessica barely had time to register her surprise before the emotions locked in her chest burst forth. Aunt Ellen. You need to hear this, she blurted out. Without waiting for a response, she continued, her voice gaining strength. Dad was just about to tell us something important. Something about our family. Ellen's brow furrowed. There was a flicker of recognition in her eyes, but she seemed hesitant to dive into the chaos. Jessica, honey, maybe it's not the best time. No, it is. Jessica interrupted, desperation rising. You've always been part of this family, part of the secrets. If there is something we need to know, please. Ellen let out a small sigh. All right, she said, stepping further into the room. I suppose it's about time we faced certain truths. George's gaze locked onto Ellen, an unspoken question tangled between them. Could they really go through this together? Jessica felt the weight of expectation. Suddenly, everything hung in balance, swaying like a pendulum ready to either break or heal. Ryan, still trying to follow the swirling conversation, looked back and forth between the adults. What is going on? What are you talking about? Kara reached over, squeezing his hand, a silent gesture of support. We're just trying to understand our history. Ellen took a deep breath, returning her focus to the group gathered round. I moved away years ago to start anew, but I never really left, she began carefully. This house has seen more than any of you realize. You see, just tell us, Jessica urged, feeling the urgency grow. What did the house mean for us? What is the truth? Ellen nodded slowly, gathering her thoughts. When your father bought this house, yes, it was about protection. But it was also about escaping a past we thought was buried, a family tragedy that impacted us all. There were matters outside this house, secrets left unspoken. Things I thought we could all forget. George clenched his jaw, looking tormented. This isn't easy for any of us, he murmured, the admission hang heavy in the air. Lily, still seated near Ryan, looked up with wide, innocent eyes, breaking the tension just a little. But what kind of tragedy? Some secrets can haunt longer than ghosts, George replied, his voice steady yet pained. And I didn't want to bring those ghosts into our lives. Jessica felt her stomach knot. They had all played their parts in pretending that everything was just fine, but clearly, that was far from the truth. So, what happened? Ellen's eyes shimmered, holding back emotion as she stepped closer to Jessica. It's not just your father's story to tell. It's been mine to carry, too. We all wore these burdens, thinking they would ease if held alone. But now? Jessica sensed a shift in the room. A dark veil was lifting, revealing ancient scars that were about to see the light of day. She couldn't stop now. Now what? Ellen looked at each face before hers, illuminated by shared fear and a flicker of hope intertwined. Now we decide whether we carry the secrets, or share our truth together. Just then, a loud knock echoed from the front door, slicing through the tension like a knife. Was it yet another reminder of the life waiting outside? Or perhaps someone who could unravel everything they'd just begun to confront? Who could that be? Ryan asked, confusion knitting his brow. As Jessica turned to face the door, her heart raced. In her gut, she knew it wouldn't be just another visitor. It would change everything. Would they stand strong together? Or would more secrets be thrust upon them, threatening to pull them apart once again? The knock rang out again, louder this time, pushing against the silence that wrapped around them. Jessica hesitated, her mind racing. Who could be standing on the other side of that door, and what weight would they bring with them? Ellen stepped closer, her eyes darting to the door before she placed a firm hand on Jessica's shoulder. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked softly, the concern in her voice warm yet piercing through Jessica's whirlwind of thoughts. Taking a deep breath, Jessica nodded, her resolve growing. Yes. We have to face whatever this is. She exchanged glances with Ryan and Kara, who both seemed equally determined, despite their trepidation. All right, then, George said, his voice a measured calm in the escalating tension. He moved toward the door, and with each step, Jessica felt her heart thud louder in her chest. As he turned the knob and pulled the door open, a rush of cold air spilled into the room. Jessica's breath quickened as she caught sight of the figure standing there. It was a man, tall and broad-shouldered, with a weary face and piercing blue eyes that seemed to look right through her. Eric, George muttered, his face draining of color. Jessica felt as though the floor had dropped below her. This was no mere visitor. This was a name she had only heard in whispers, a shadow haunting family gatherings. What are you doing here? George's tone was icy, a stark contrast to the warm embrace of the family members gathered within the house. Eric's gaze flickered between the faces in the room, his mouth opening slightly as if he were about to speak, but he hesitated. Jessica's mind raced with questions. Who was he? What had he done? Why had he returned now? Aunt Ellen, do you know him? Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but loud enough to draw Ellen's attention. Yes, Ellen breathed out slowly, her expression morphing to one of conflict. We were close once. The alias in the room shifted like smoke, wrapping around them and thickening the air with unspoken stories. Ryan's grip on Kara's hand tightened as he leaned closer, his curiosity evident. We need to talk, Eric finally said, his tone layered with urgency, as if the past had found its way to the present with a vengeance. But there's so much going on right now, Jessica countered, unsure if she wanted to welcome this stranger into their family's fragile moment. I know about the secrets, he declared, throwing a glance at Ellen and George. And I'm here to help you understand what happened. What's at stake? The room shifted again, like a wild current in a river, ready to pull them all in different directions. Jessica felt the weight of his words press down. How could he possibly know? And if he did, was he part of the tragedy or the answer? Ellen opened her mouth, but no words emerged. Jessica sensed hesitation. Would they forge ahead into further turmoil, or retreat back into the safety of silence? As Jessica stood there, the wall between her and this newfound mystery crumbled. Questions clawed at her. What do you mean? What do you know? Jessica pressed, feeling the urgency swell within her. A heavy silence enveloped the room as Eric took a step inside, the threshold crossed like a line drawn in the sand. I'll explain, he began, his voice steady but pierced with a hint of vulnerability, but you'll need to brace yourselves. You won't be the same after this. Jessica's heart raced. They had been on the verge of an awakening, and now, another chapter was about to unfold. There was no turning back. But what truth lurked in the shadows, waiting to walk into the light? With a sudden sense of foreboding and anticipation, she realized they were about to uncover not just histories, but their futures too. Then just tell us everything, she urged, before we lose what's left of us. Eric shifted his weight slightly, the muscles in his neck tightening as he took a moment to gather himself. The air in the room felt thick, charged with emotions that oscillated between fear and curiosity. Jessica could see George's jaw clenched, while even Ryan looked nervous, his eyes darting between Jessica and Eric, too confused to process what was happening. "I didn't come here to hurt anyone," Eric finally said, his voice low yet strong, breaking the mounting tension. "I came to warn you to protect you." "Protect us?" George echoed, disbelief lacing his tone like a bitter thread. "From what? You come knocking after all these years, and you expect us to just trust you?" Jessica felt a surge of anger at the accusation. Here was someone who at least had the decency to show up, unlike the ghosts of family secrets that lingered in the air like uninvited guests. She stepped forward, her voice firm despite the shaking in her core. "But we need to know, George. If he has answers, we can't ignore that." Eric glanced at her, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "You need to understand what your family kept from you." There was tension, unresolved issues that led to a split. But what happened then is relevant now, more than you realize. Jessica exchanged glances with Ellen, who looked torn between old memories and current loyalties. The silence in the room thickened again, heavier with each breath. "What should we brace ourselves for?" Ellen finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Eric took a deeper breath, seeking words that could unravel years of misunderstanding. "There was an incident, a family conflict involving your mother and her brother. They were caught in something much bigger than just family squabbles. It wasn't just a disagreement, it was about control, power, things hidden beneath the surface." His blue eyes suddenly shimmered with a depth of pain. Jessica felt her heart ache. Her mother, always such a source of strength, had been part of this tangled history. What had happened? "You don't understand," Eric pressed on, urgency threading through his speech. "Your mother never wanted to hide the truth from you, Jessica. But it was too dangerous. She was trying to protect you from the fallout." Dread swept over the group like a cold tide as Jessica's mind raced. What fallout? What secrets? Her legs felt weak beneath her, but curiosity rooted her in place. "Dangerous from what?" Kara whispered from the back, her voice trembling noticeably. "From the family. What you don't realize is that not everyone in your lineage sought only love and togetherness. There are those who," Eric hesitated, searching for the right words, "made decisions that shattered trust. These choices could come knocking on your door now, turning this moment into a life-altering realization." Jessica's heart felt like it was going to burst. She needed to know the truth. "Explain it, Eric. Don't leave us with half-truths." In that voice, there was a mix between desperation and determination. The shadows danced in the corners of the room, whispering unseen specters of all the emotions held back for so long. "I'll tell you everything, but know this: anything you learn from me can change the way you see your family forever." The weight of his words stung. Could they really handle that? What if the truth held a darkness they weren't ready to face? Jessica's mind reeled, her gut twisting with possibilities and what-ifs. What happened next? She demanded, her breath barely escaping her lips as she felt the walls around her begin to vibrate with the intensity of her questions. As Eric opened his mouth to answer, a loud crash echoed from outside, breaking the fragile moment like glass shattering into a million pieces. The room surged with adrenaline, fear clawing through their hearts. Something bigger was stirring beyond those four walls, and it threatened to pull them all into chaos. What had they just invited into their lives? And as the shadows lengthened, Jessica's gut twisted with anxiety. The past hadn't just returned, it was coming in full force. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across Maplewood, as Jessica stood at the center of her family's chaos. The inexplicable mixture of fear and resolve blended in her heart, but she knew one thing for sure: they were on the brink of something monumental. With Eric's truth swirling in their midst like a brewing storm, the air crackled with tension. "What was that noise?" Ryan asked, his voice trembling slightly as he cast a furtive glance towards the door. "We have to go check," Jessica declared, her protective instincts kicking in as she grasped for her children. "Stay close." With a nod, Ryan, Lily, and Max clung to her side, their faces reflecting the swirl of confusion and hope in her heart. George led the way, gripping the doorknob as if summoning the courage for whatever awaited them outside. Jessica's mind raced. Could they truly confront the past now? What were the repercussions of Eric's words? Each beat of her heart echoed the urgency of the moment, propelling them toward the door. As George pulled it open, the evening light flooded in, momentarily blinding them. The scene outside was a jumble of activity. Neighbors had gathered, their faces painted with worry. "Did you hear? There was an accident." One of them yelled, panic wrapping around each sphere of sound. A car crashed down the street. It took out a power line. The reality hit her like a cold splash of water. The impact of that crash, unseen but deeply felt, threatened to shatter their moment yet again. Jessica felt the pull of urgency. Did her family's complicated history contain any salvations against fresh turmoil? "Everyone all right?" George called out, his voice steady despite the chaos enveloping them. "Yes, but the power's out." A neighbor with a concerned frown responded, gesturing towards the flickering streetlights. "We're organizing to help the family. They need support." In that moment, something shifted inside Jessica. With the truth of their own family dynamics hanging precariously in the air, she realized there was power in unity and opportunity to transform an overwhelming burden into an act of redemption. Just like the community was doing, she yearned to forge ahead and not retreat into the shadows. "Let us help them," Jessica said, her voice ringing with newfound clarity. "This is our chance to step into the light, to face not just our past, but the present." "Are you sure?" George asked, concern etching his voice. "With everything we've uncovered, it's heavy." Jessica held his gaze, strength coursing through her veins. "I know. But if we can support the community, perhaps we begin to rebuild our own family ties as well." Uncertainty washed over the faces of everyone present, but the fervor in Jessica's heart ignited a spark of momentum. "Let us do this together, one step at a time," she called, her voice imbued with the passion of a new collective journey. As people began to spring into action, she noticed Ryan's hesitance. "Come on," she encouraged, clutching his hand. "This is how we begin to heal. Helping others helps us too." Kara, buoyed by Jessica's enthusiasm, stepped forward. "I'll organize food and supplies." As they dashed to gather supplies, Jessica turned, searching for George. "You're coming with me, right?" George hesitated, then nodded, a flicker of hope replacing his earlier uncertainty. He stepped forward, joining her side. "Together," he affirmed, his voice thick with emotion. Together, they approached the chaos of neighbors and strangers, their hearts lifted by the shared purpose. In that moment, the layers of pain began to unfurl, allowing room for healing to seep in. Each act of kindness, a warm meal delivered, a comforting hand extended, bridged the divide, stitching their frayed connections back together. Eric stood amidst the frenzy, awed by this display of community strength, as Jessica watched her children play with neighborhood friends. Laughter rang out, piercing the weight of previous sorrows. As dusk settled around Maplewood, Jessica felt buoyed by the support enveloping her like a warm embrace. The shadows of their past no longer felt burdensome, but rather as lessons that brought them closer, a woven tapestry of love, support, and resilience. When night fell, Jessica gathered everyone close. "This isn't just about understanding the past. It's about looking forward, about creating a legacy not entangled in darkness, but filled with love," she proclaimed, her voice steady now, aflame with conviction. As they exchanged glances, a sense of unity washed over them. Even George wore a soft, tentative smile. They had taken the first step toward healing both as a family and community. The shadow of secrets still lingered, but for the first time, it didn't feel overwhelming. Instead, it became a moment to understand the stories that shaped them. With hearts intertwining like vines, they forged a pact to keep facing the storms together, knowing that the truth, however painful, could be stronger when faced in unison. Jessica finally felt peace settling over her, knowing they weren't just fighting to keep the family together, they were building a foundation stronger than any secret could break. As they began to rework their family story, Jessica embraced Lily and Max, her heart swelling with determination. Let us always remember to love fully means to face the truth together, without fear. And amidst the joy synthesized from both pain and love, Jessica knew this was just the beginning. Now is your moment. You need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories unfolding just like this one. Leave a like, and feed the algorithm to ensure these heartfelt tales reach even more people. Share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Every reaction counts. Don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. Your support is everything. Let us keep the love spreading.